I am the fourth of 5 children. My parents taught at a black college in the South in the 40s and the 50s. My father was born in England and came to America in 1938 with my mother, who was then expecting my oldest sister. And we grew up in Atlanta with my father as a history professor at Atlanta University, which is the graduate school for Morehouse and Spelman. And my mother eventually taught in the English department and worked in the Atlanta League of Women Voters, which was at the time when there was a tremendous, in the 40s and the 50s, it was a very segregated town, but as the end of the 50s approached and the integration movement came to the fore, my parents, especially my mother, for her dual role, she ended up working in the publicity department, teaching English, and being president of the Atlanta League of Women Voters. So we were in the thick of all of that integration stuff going on at the end of the 50s and the beginning of the 60s. We initially began living in faculty housing, which we were one of a handful of white families, but then eventually we moved to a white neighborhood as there was no integrated housing away from the college. I do remember from the 40s the police coming to the house when there were black people who came for dinner, but my father was English and very English, with a tweed jacket and patches on the elbows and all of that, and suspenders and a white shirt. And so when the police came, he introduced himself, and then he introduced them around to this and this and this faculty member who had PhDs. So this was Dr. Burroughs, Dr. Banks, etc. And after a while, they stopped coming. So I have a rather unique background in that regard. I went to University of Pennsylvania in 1960, and I finished with a degree in French literature in 1964. And then I went for a year to Columbia, but I had met my husband by then, who was a student at Penn in the law school. And instead of going to California, that's how I ended up at Columbia. And then I wanted to marry him, so I came back to Philadelphia, and I finished my PhD at Bryn Mawr. I taught Comp Lit and French, and then in 1990, I got drafted to be Dean of Students. And I've worked as hard as I possibly can, along with all of my colleagues in student services, to support the work of the rest of the college and to be integrated into it, and not a fifth wheel, but an integral part of the total experience. What happens in the classroom is like the big center of a sunflower, and it's the heart of what happens, but there are all these little things that happen on the outside that can contribute to the students' growth and development. It's about empowering them, really. I guess that's and so whatever we can do outside of the classroom to further empower them and to round out their education and the contributions that those things make, and not only the things that we do, but the Locke's Career Center, the internships that students have, the possibility of going abroad, the fellowships that students have, both the traveling fellowships, and we have these women's leadership fellowships. Those things, plus the leadership training, the emerging leaders in the arts, the culture in the classroom, these are all, so here you have your core, and then you have these things on top of that, which are making a contribution. Our students work like mad women, and they are capable and, driven. Just look at the amount of hours they put in. And I think we will see, because we're in our 3rd year of the emerging leaders in the arts. But what is a good thing about that to me is that it goes beyond a traditional leadership program like a residence life training or student government training, and incorporates some of that and the art piece and understanding careers and getting as much of a knowledge of careers as you can and forging your own career. And given that we heavily are focused on having a career in the arts, that's like for those students who are in that program, a serious bonus with their education, and it's something that is distinctive. And the other
is the value of these leadership programs, and the sense that why does one come to a women's college? One comes to a women's college to get the extra edge of being important in that setting. And what better way to be important than to know that the president of student government will be a woman, the 4 RDs will all be women, the emerging leaders in the arts will all be women, the student orientation staff, they will all be women, the student judiciary will all be women. And they learn from these things, and it helps them, it strengthens them and helps them go forward equipped in a way that, they wouldn't be equipped if they hadn't had this experience.